So in the previous lecture, we saw an example of using the iter syntax. So iter accessor gives you the name and the age instance variables. If you do .name in the beginning, there's nothing there, and then you assign a name, or you could assign an age as well. Now there's a problem with this example. The problem, actually, there are two problems. Number one, person is in an uninitialized state upon creation, which is really not good. I mean, you eventually assign the name and the age variables to it, but really you want to have the object initialized when it's created. Also, you probably want to control the max age assigned. So to do this, we're going to use a constructor as well as a more intelligent age setter. Now, before we look at that example, I want to discuss self. Self is very similar to this in Java if you've used this in Java. It basically refers to the object itself. Now, sometimes using self for calling other methods of the same instance is extraneous, but other times it's absolutely necessary. And we'll see an example in a minute which will make this clear. Outside instance method definition, self refers to the class itself, which we'll discuss in a few slides from now. So let's see an example. We have this person, and instead of just doing iter accessor for both name and age, what we're going to do is we're going to do it for age as a iter reader, which will only give us the get functionality. And we ourselves are going to make our own set functionality. For name, though, it's pretty simple, so we're just going to go with a built-in iter accessor name functionality, which is going to be to get the name and to set the name instance variable. So in the age setter, what we're going to do is we're going to say, here's your age, and set the new age to this age, unless the new age is greater than 120. So that's how we are controlling the max age of this instance. Now, if you look at the constructor here, the initialize method, we have the name and the age var that we're passing in. So the name is pretty simple. You just assign the name to the @name. For the age, though, we use a self dot. And what this does is it calls the age equals setter, which is below. Now, why do we have to use self.age? Why can't we just say age equals in this case? Well, the reason is because you're inside a method, so if you just do age equals, it's going to think that we're just setting a local variable called age, and we assign a value of age var to that local variable. What would happen is when this method, when this initialize method is finished, the age local variable would just go out of scope and disappear. And our person would not have the age set. So in this case, we're saying, no, this is not an age local variable. This is an age setter method, which is below, and we're doing that by doing self dot age, which calls the age equals method. Now for the age getter, though, we just do age, because really there's no confusion possible because we don't have an age local variable. So it says, oh, you must be talking about the age getter method, which is the iter reader. So it's just going to return the value of that, of calling the person instance dot age getter method. So to see that in example in practice, we have person.new, we have this constructor, which eventually calls the initialize, and then person.age will give you the actual age of a person, which is 13. Now, if you try to set the age to be 130, which is too high, it won't let you, and it will still be 13. We also have this double pipe operator, which way it works is it tries to, it evaluates what's on the left side. If that's true, it just returns that. Otherwise, it returns what's on the right side. So for example, in this case, if we have an at x and at x pipe 5, it's going to say, well, if at x is defined, then return it. Otherwise, if it's not defined, return 5. There's also a short form of this, which is just at x pipe equals 5, which is pretty much same as above, except for some edge cases, which if you want, you can look up in this blog. So let's see an example of that. Our same person class, we have an attr reader and an attr accessor, and we have a constructor. Now in the age method, in the age setter method, we're going to say if age is not defined yet, assign the value of 5 to it. Otherwise, if it's already defined, just use that age for now. And then in the next line, define it to a new age unless the new age is greater than 120. So what we have is, we have this person initialized, person1 dot age would give you 5 because 130 is not a valid age. So when self.age gets called, it says, okay, so it's going to be 5 in the beginning. Then the next line does not work because it's greater than 120. So then we have person age. You could reinitialize the age to 10, which will give you 10. But then if you try to do 200, it won't work because 200 is greater than 120, so it will return 10 still. Now, Ruby also has this notion of class methods, which are invoked on the class as opposed to the instance of a class. So this is similar to static methods in Java, if you're familiar with those. And the way you define those is by specifying self outside of a method definition, and that refers to the class object versus the class instance object. And there are actually 3 ways to define class methods. You could do it what I just described, which is self.method name, as well as these other 2 ways, either by doing this interesting operator. So you're doing self, basically add whatever follows this into the class methods category as opposed to the class instance methods. Or you could just say the class name like this, dot the class method. But basically all 3 of these, with self dot being the most common one, what they end up doing is you don't have to create an instance of a class to use it. So you, instead of doing math functions dot new dot double, you just do math functions dot double.